Hello everybody, welcome to Chapter 1, Lesson 9. This is Brianne Pernick for Robert Morris University Math 0900. In this lesson we are going to work on simplifying algebraic expressions by removing grouping symbols. There are three main types of grouping symbols that you will encounter in mathematics. The three main types of grouping symbols that you need to make sure that you are familiar with are the parentheses, brackets, and the braces. Now, we use different types of grouping symbols because sometimes expressions are contained within other expressions. So it's necessary to be able to separate them and distinguish between them. The brackets and the braces are often used to help ease the confusion that we might encounter when we're using the multiples, if we were to use multiple sets of parentheses within our particular expressions. So what we're going to do now is go through some examples, and what I would like you to remember as we're going through these, and that's this bold-faced little paragraph right here, is that we always start with the innermost set of grouping symbols and you work your way from the inside out, right there. Okay, so you start on the inside and you're going to work your way out. So let's take a look at example A. If we find the innermost set of grouping symbols for example A, it's going to be the set of parentheses that contain y minus 1. Now y minus 1 is an expression that we cannot simplify. So what we do next is we try to use the distributive property by distributing in the negative 3 that is directly in front of that set of parentheses. So everything else is just simply going to have to come on down into the next line. So we're going to bring down the 2, the bracket, the 5y, and now we're going to distribute our negative 3. So negative 3 times y makes negative 3y, and negative 3 times negative 1 makes positive 3. At this point, you check to see if you can combine like terms. Every single time that you distribute and simplify a line, your next step is, can I combine any like terms to make my math simpler? And it just so happens that we can. We can combine the 5y and the negative 3y. And in this same step, I would be inclined to change my brackets to a parenthesis because at this point there are no other grouping symbols and I am down to just one set of grouping symbols, so I would change them back to a parenthesis. So 5y minus 3y is 2y plus 3, close my parenthesis. I cannot do anything with my 2y plus 3, so now I have to use the distributive property to continue to simplify. So we will distribute in the 2 that's in front of the parentheses. So 2 times 2y is 4y, and 2 times 3 gives us a positive 6. So that entire expression simplified to 4y plus 6. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to example B. In example B, we're going to find our innermost parentheses. Now, in this example, inside the bracket, we do have 2 sets of parentheses. So let's take a look at each set here. The first set of parentheses, I cannot do anything with my 4y minus 3, but when I look in front of it, I can see that I'll be distributing a negative. With my second set of parentheses, I have a 2x minus 7. Can't do anything with my 2x minus 7, but directly in front of that parenthesis, we have a positive 1. When you have a positive 1 directly in front of a set of parentheses that you can't do anything more with, you can simply remove those parentheses in order to get rid of them. So at this point in time, we're going to distribute our negative to the first quantity of 4y minus 3. So negative 1 times 4y gives us negative 4y, and negative 1 times negative 3 gives us positive 3. Now remember, we said that inside the quantity of 2x minus 7, we can't do anything. And directly in front of that quantity was just a plain old plus sign, which is like a positive 1. If you were to multiply through by a positive 1, nothing inside your quantity would change. So I'm just simply going to bring down a positive 2x and a negative 7. And then I'm going to close my bracket. At this point, we check to see if we can combine any like terms. I have no other grouping symbols, so I'll change it back to a parenthesis. 6y minus 4y makes 2y. Then I have an x, so I'll bring down my 2x. And 3 minus 7 makes negative 4. And we're going to close our parenthesis. At this point, you can do nothing further inside your group, so you have to distribute your negative 3. Negative 3 times 2y makes negative 6y. Negative 3 times 2x makes negative 6x. Negative 3 times negative 4 makes positive 12. And there we are. Now, example C, we have a lot going on here. You see that we have a ton of grouping symbols here. Don't be frightened by the amount of grouping symbols that you see. You simply start on the inside and work your way out. So when you look at the first set that we have here, and let's just look here on the left-hand side for now, the innermost set of parentheses or grouping symbols is b plus 3c. We can't do anything with that, so we look to see what's directly in front of that grouping symbol, and it is a negative. So we will be distributing that negative into that group. So we're going to bring down the 3, the bracket, the 2a, and at this point we will distribute in a negative. So negative times b is negative b. Negative times 3c is negative 3c. And we're going to close our bracket. Then we have plus negative 2. Those parentheses are simply there for cosmetic purposes. Bring down the bracket. And as you look in here, we are going to be distributing a negative 3 into that innermost quantity. So negative 3 times b makes negative 3b. Negative 3 times 2a makes negative 3. That makes negative 6a. My apologies there. So now we're getting down to a set of brackets that have no further like terms within them. So in order for us to simplify at this point, we need to utilize the distributive property. So we will just distribute the coefficient that is in front of each bracket. So 3 times 2a makes 6a. 3 times negative b makes negative 3b. 3 times negative 3c makes negative 9c. On the next grouping symbol with the brackets, we will be distributing a negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 8c makes positive 16c. Negative 2 times negative 3b makes positive 6b. Negative 2 times negative 6a makes positive 12a. So now we're simply going to go through our expression and combine like terms. 6a plus 12a makes 18a. Cross them out so we know we use them. Negative 3b plus 6b makes positive 3b. Cross them out so we know we've used them. Negative 9c plus 16c, we can also think of it as 16 minus 9 makes positive 7c, and we have finished our problem. I'd like for you guys to go ahead and try example D. Please pause the recording, take a moment, work through example D, and whenever you are finished, please play the recording and we'll go through the answer together. Okay, at this point, everybody should have had an opportunity to complete example D. And as you are working your way through this, you should have seen that you have braces on the outside, then a set of brackets, and then on the inside of the brackets we have a set of parentheses. We do need to start with the parentheses on the inside. So I am simply going to start by bringing down everything until I get to my parentheses. Now we cannot do a minus 2, so we have to distribute in the positive 4. So 4 times a makes 4a. 4 times negative 2 makes negative 8. I'm going to close my bracket and close my brace. It's very important that you remember to close the grouping symbols that you have opened. The next step after you have distributed and simplified is always to check to see if you can combine like terms. And we can. In this step, I'm also changing my bracket back to a parenthesis. It's just a personal preference. You can combine 1a and 4a. They're going to make 5a minus 8. Change my bracket back to a parenthesis. Again, that's just personal preference. You don't have to do that. Now on the inside, you have your 5a minus 8. And we are going to work our way through there because since we can't do that, we have to distribute the negative 3. So I'm going to bring down my negative 2, my brace, my 2a squared, and we are now going to simplify. Negative 3 times 5 makes negative 15a. Negative 3 times negative 8 makes positive 24. Close your brace. And now at this point, check to see if you can combine like terms. You cannot. So you're ready to distribute in the negative 2 on the outside. Negative 2 times 2a makes negative 4a squared. Negative 2 times negative 15a makes positive 30a. And negative 2 times 24 makes negative 48. And there we have it. Now keep in mind that there are various steps that you could have taken to solve that problem. Perhaps you didn't see at the beginning here that you could have combined like terms. Maybe you distributed in that negative 3 without combining. It happens. You'll go through some more steps and have a little bit more math, but in the end you should still achieve the same result that we had. Now one special note that I do want to point out to you here, and this is our last example, is that fraction bars are to be considered a grouping symbol. There are imaginary parentheses, if you would like to think of it this way, around everything that is in a numerator, as well as everything that is in a denominator. So if you have more than one term that is written in a numerator or denominator, you need to say to yourself, hey, there's imaginary parentheses here, and that makes them a group. So you need to take care of every single operation that you can possibly take care of in your numerator, and then every single operation that you can possibly take care of in your denominator before you take care of that division that's denoted by that fraction bar. Let me show you what I mean by this. First thing that we're going to do is do the substitution for a and b. So we're going to have negative 1 squared plus negative 1 times negative 2 all over 3 times negative 2. Now, since I told you that there are imaginary grouping symbols around this numerator and this denominator, you need to think to yourself, well, before I can do anything, I need to take care of all of the math that's in the numerator and all of the math that's in the denominator. So we're going to do our exponent. Negative 1 squared makes 1 plus negative 1 times negative 2 makes 2. In the denominator, you have 3 times negative 2, which makes negative 6. We still are not done simplifying this numerator because we still have those imaginary grouping symbols there. We have to finish this addition. So we have 3 over negative 6. This is now a fraction that you should recognize that can be simplified. So 3 over 6 will simplify to 1/2. So your answer here is negative 1/2. As always, if you have any questions about anything that we covered in this section, please feel free to contact me and I will be more than happy to go over additional problems with you or answer your questions, or whatever the case may be. Thank you.